What's up, y'all? Welcome back to yourrealestate101.com. Okay, well, today I want to talk to you about something that is very important to a lot of you guys who are trying to buy properties, especially right now since everything is hot. These are going to be my top 5 mistakes you can make when you're trying to buy a property. Now, if you guys have not already, please smash that like button and also don't forget to subscribe. Now that we got that out of the way, let's go into this thing. Okay, number 1, buying too expensive. One good thing about real estate is that over time it is forgiven. That means that the property costs will always go back up. So even if you buy a little bit higher, sooner or later the prices will start going back up. Now, but the problem here we're saying is buying it too expensive. If you buy a property that's just too expensive, that means that you probably fell in love with the property and you looked at it, you said, man, that's the property you always wanted. The owner just threw a number out and you thought it was okay. A lot of times property owners sometimes don't even know what their property is worth, and they go against their realtor, even if the realtor says, look, you know what? That's pretty pricey. But what they do is they go with the high price. Now, if you fall in love with that property and you feel like you must have that property, you're not running your numbers, you're not checking to see what the comps are, you might end up paying too much for the property. Now, too much could be a problem, because then you're not making enough or your bills are going to be too high. Also, sometimes banks will be your safety net if you are using a bank. But if you are not using a bank and you're paying cash, now imagine you bought a property and you're paid cash and then you try to refinance it and it's like a few $100,000 less. So you kind of get the idea. If you buy at the right price, your money is made the day you buy that property. So you should have a little something extra for yourself. Okay. Number 2, buying a property with too many damages. This is especially for those BRRRR investors. A lot of times we look for properties with issues that we can fix, like damages or roofs or stuff like that, leaks, whatever. But the problem with this is this: if you buy a property with, like, let's say you think all it needs is painting and you're not ready, a lot of this stuff means you have to have a good game plan and know what your game plan is. So if you buy a property and let's say you thought that the only thing it needed was siding, and then later you find out the roof is no good. Then later you find out the foundation is no good. The heat is no good. The water heater is no good. And it just goes on and on and on. This can actually give you a lot of trouble, because if you have tenants, they're going to be moving out. And if you don't have tenants, or you're trying to fix it before you can have tenants, you might end up holding the place for a longer time, which can then drain you. So these are all things that can go really wrong if you don't pay attention to how you're doing it. Now, number 3, buying a property that does not cash flow. Now, again, this comes down to your game plan, because some people don't really care for a property to cash flow. However, if you do, I recommend you should try to find a property that cash flow. Some banks will not even work with you. Some banks will not even actually give you a loan if there's not enough money being made. So keep that in mind. Now, the reason why it's important for the property cash flow is, number 1, you want something for yourself, and not even that, but you want to know that the property, if something goes wrong, even if it's something that doesn't cover up your capex, you want to make sure that the property cash flow. Because I know people who kind of like almost pay to own a property, which kind of makes no sense to me. It works only if you intend to, like, if you're a duplex and you intend to like live next door, yeah, maybe that could work. But if you don't live at the property, it doesn't really make too much sense for me for you to pay, like, on top of owning that property. Unless, like I said, unless you have a game plan and your focus and your goal is to turn around and sell it in a few years. So that is why I said there's other game plans out there. But for this, the one we're talking about today, what we've been talking a lot about in our real estate with our first home buying property, we want it to cash flow. Okay? Number 4, buying a property in the wrong area. We've heard of the saying, location, location, location. Now, buying a property in the wrong area could mean like buying like properties in a war zone, or just buying a property that you might be afraid to manage, or buying a property where you can't, there's no property managers in the area and you don't know how to manage it, or the area is too difficult for you to get to. There's a lot of different reasons why it could be in the wrong area. So you have to make sure you understand it. But we'll talk about even two things. Let's say you buy a property in a very, let's say you put all your money in, you buy really nice property in a very upscale area. You didn't follow the other things on this list, and let's say you paid too much for it, but you love the property, it's beautiful. Now you end up with this high class tenants, very picky, let's say, and now guess what? Your property's not cash flowing. Your property's not cash flowing. There's some little simple damage, but because it's a good area, they probably paid a lot for the cabinets or whatever the thing is, and now you got to pay a lot of money for it. So you see, you can see it in both ways. It doesn't always have to be in a bad area. Now the bad area, the problem there is that the managers the bad area out of the property. You can do it, but it's very difficult to manage the bad area out of the property. It's very hard to manage that out. So what would happen is you ran into a tenant destroys it, you ran into the second tenant destroys. The problem with this is this: you can say, oh yeah, we'll just screen. But what happens is if 99% of the people that's coming for your property, or almost all of them is coming for your property, are not actually that great, and then you're holding the property empty for a long time, looking for tenants, this is what starts to happen. And this is kind of like, it could also become like a slow decline. And this can also give you issues, financial issues, if you don't play your cards right. Okay, the next thing is number 5, buying with too much delayed maintenance. The reason why I separate delayed maintenance from damages is because delayed maintenance is a little different. Delayed maintenance is where you have things that's supposed to be done. Like, let's say the roof should have been changed. The sidings were getting a little bit beat up. The painting of the property is not painted. Grass is not cut the right way, or trees have been overgrown. Those kind of things, which you might not think they're something when you're buying the property. You might look at the property and go, oh man, it's a great property, and then you might think it's not a big deal. But then those things come back and then they eat you up. Old refrigerators, old furnaces, old water heaters, all these things can just come back if you pay attention to these things when you're buying a property. So focus on that when you're buying a property. Okay, so there you have it, guys. Those are my top 5 mistakes that people sometimes make when buying a property. Now, one thing I want to point out is this. Sometimes with these things is this. Sometimes you have a property in location A next door, and then they sell their property, and the neighbor goes, wow, that guy just sold his property for $300,000. I can sell mine for $400,000 because I got 4 bedrooms in it. He only had 3. Now, here's sometimes what the neighbor doesn't fully understand. Property A could have had a better roof, proper roof. The sidings were updated. The painting was updated. The furnaces was brand new or updated. All these things are like being managed differently versus property next door, where the guy could have had never changed the roof, never changed his furnace, never changed the water heater. But then sometimes these owners think their property should be worth because they're right next door. So if you're the guy who comes in to buy it and someone says, yeah, next door sold for like $300,000, and you're looking at it like, okay, so it should be worth that. Well, guess what? You're not paying $300,000 or $400,000. You're actually paying more because you got to calculate those delayed maintenances or any damages into your numbers. Okay, this is something that a lot of people don't do when they're buying property. They don't actually add those things that they're gonna have to fix into the numbers of what that property is really worth. Okay, because you might think you're buying that property for $300,000 or $400,000, but then you forgot to add the roof. Once you add the roof, you add the kitchen that's gonna be needing updates, and this and this and this and that, then you are gonna come up to what the property is really worth. Okay, now it's if you know, like I said, this is all about game plans. If you know what you're doing and that's exactly the kind of property you're looking for, it is very good because you can make a lot of money. You can make a lot of money even in any of these issues. You can make a lot of money by going in areas where people won't go. You can make a lot of money with buying properties of what people don't want to fix. You can make a lot of money with buying properties with damages, delayed maintenance, all these things, right? All these things. But remember one thing: know your game plan. Whether it's in a business plan, whether you did it from analyzing how you want it to have your family structure, how you want your lifestyle to be, but make a plan, have an idea. Say to yourself, okay, well, am I willing to go and manage this myself? Or what if I have to manage this myself? Am I willing to go into this neighborhood? Am I willing to deal with, keep the property at this scale? In other words, like if it's a great area and it's like the tenants are upscale, am I willing to, put the high-end products in this property? So don't just think it's a simple thing like, oh, there's a property, it rents out, I make money. So also make sure your numbers are right, okay? Because believe it or not, to calculate the expenses of the delayed maintenances and the damages that's in that property. So if you do that, you might think you got a great deal, but you actually are losing money, or you're buying it for a lot more than you think. Okay, well, there you guys have it. Don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe. I hope you like this video. Tell me what you think. Tell me if you think I missed something, or if you think there's something I should have added, or if you have any questions. So there you go. Let's have a conversation.